But we begin with the latest in the presidential race right here in the United States. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump each won their party's respective primaries in Michigan just last night. The results further solidify an all but certain rematch between the two men in November of this year. Now, Michigan was the last major primary state before Super Tuesday, and it witnessed a record turnout.
Today, before any poll opened in Michigan, already over 1 million citizens had voted, had cast their ballots in Michigan's elections, and that was a record turnout for a presidential primary. It was higher than what we saw in 2020.
Now, President Biden has cruised to victories in South Carolina, Nevada, and New Hampshire, where he was a write-in candidate. Donald Trump has swept all 5 of his early states contests, including South Carolina. However, Michigan results have highlighted some of the biggest potential vulnerabilities for both Biden and Trump in the critical swing state ahead of the November election. Beginning with President Joe Biden, he is facing serious backlash over his handling of Israel's war against Hamas and Gaza. Now, Michigan, which has the largest concentration of Arab Americans in the country, has become the focal point of Democratic frustration regarding the White House's actions in the war. This anger came out loud and clear as some voters marked uncommitted on their ballot in the Democratic primary.
I voted uncommitted because I think President Biden is not doing the right things for the Palestinian who has the right to live. You know what I mean? I believe in a peace in both nations.
This community, the glaring issue is the situation in the Middle East, and it's very well known that we support a ceasefire, and we'd like our president to listen.
We really want him to stop supporting the ongoing hostilities in Gaza. Voting uncommitted is a great tool we have here in Michigan.
The Listen to Michigan campaign, which organized the protest vote, was hoping to see a return of around 10,000 votes in last night's primary. But however, with 85% of the vote already counted, the uncommitted vote has exceeded more than 100,000.
Absolutely clear for me. There's 30,000 people that lost their lives for no reason under the Biden administration. How can you redeem yourself from that? 30,000. And there's a better way. And the U.S. does not have to continue in this way. And I hope for those that say, oh, if you don't vote for Biden, you're voting for Trump. No, we're voting for humanity, and that's where we stand. Firmly, unequivocally.
Meanwhile, on the right, though Trump did win the primary by a large margin, his rival Nikki Haley still saw significant support in the critical state of Michigan. Roughly 30% of Republicans who voted either for Haley or uncommitted might be a potential challenge for Donald Trump in the fall. Now, this continues a trend from previous primaries showing a sizable group of Republicans either firmly opposed to Donald Trump or perhaps still needing to be won over. Trump did win Michigan in 2016, but by a sliver, only about 10,000 votes. But then he lost to Biden by roughly 150,000 votes in 2020. Just 16 of Michigan's 55 Republican presidential delegates will be determined by the primary results, while the remaining delegates will be allocated during a March 2nd convention. Now, Trump's anticipated dominance at that state convention, where grassroots activists will play a key role, will decide the allocation of the remaining 39 Republican delegates. As for Nikki Haley, time is indeed really running out. The Republican presidential candidate once again failed to deliver the momentum-changing win that she so desperately needs. And rather than growing, her margins are in fact shrinking. While campaigning in Michigan, Haley said Republicans would in fact lose if Donald Trump is the nominee.
If Donald Trump is the candidate, Republicans will once again lose the election. We'll lose the swing states, we'll lose the House, we'll lose the Senate, and we won't take anything with us. The Republican Party is fully divided, and you now have factions. You can't win a general election if you don't acknowledge the 40% of Republicans who are saying we don't want Donald Trump. It used to be that Republicans cared about peace through strength. Now we don't see that anymore. Now we see Trump siding with Putin, a tyrant and a dictator who kills his political opponents, who arrests journalists and holds them hostage, and who continues to say that he wants to destroy America. And you've got Trump saying that he would encourage Putin to invade our allies. This isolationist approach that Donald Trump is putting over the party is creating a scenario that puts us further in war, not preventing war.
Now, these arguments, though ominous, made by Nikki Haley have been indeed falling flat. Results in parties' primaries and caucuses so far show that Republican voters simply aren't swayed by her arguments that she is better positioned than Donald Trump to beat Joe Biden in the upcoming presidential election. Now, Haley's campaign hopes to sell Michigan results as a sign of weakness for both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. Good luck with that.
From impeachments to inaugurations, if it's a political story, we are on the scene. The race for the White House is heating up.
We're beating Biden.
How dare he say that?
If it's breaking news, we're live with the latest coverage. From the White House, the State Department, and Capitol Hill, we know the issues, but above all, we know the players to bring you the latest in-depth analysis on all the key stories that we're covering. I'm Eric Ham. Join me from Washington here on Firstpost America.